Welcome to the Nate KG podcast. I'm your host, Nate KG, and this is a show about jump rope where I connect with and share the stories of all types of jump ropers, ranging from enthusiasts to elite competitors and everyone in between. On this episode, I talk with Adam Osborne at adam.osborne20 on Instagram. Adam is a competitive jumper that's competed at the Grand National level and has also staffed several of the largest workshops in the US. We dive into a lot of different topics, including jump rope skills that require 2 or more people, some of Adam's favorite performances, coaching at workshops, and a whole lot more. All of the show notes for this episode can be found over at natekg.com. And without further ado, please enjoy this interview of Adam Osborne. Adam, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, this is going to be really cool because we have corresponded a little bit over DM, and you've tagged me in a couple of videos and stuff, but we actually haven't chatted before.
No.
So this will be really fun to kind of like freshly introduce each other to each other. So I think a cool place to start then would be, where you're from and where you grew up.
Currently, I'm living in Maryland, but I was raised in Michigan. I just moved here about like a year or two ago because my dad got a job offer, and so I've been living there since.
And so then you do competitive jump rope, is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct.
And then what team are you on?
I'm actually double teaming. So I jump with the Jumpin' All-Stars for like AMJRF and like USAJR Nationals. And then for AAU, I jump with the Skip Wizard.
So do you go compete in the Junior Olympics?
Yeah.
How many times have you gone and done that?
Actually, this summer was my first time. It was really cool.
Was that your first year like competing in general?
No, I've been competing for 7 years.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Mm-hmm. But it was my first time at AAU because I heard bits and pieces, but I never had a group of people who wanted to go. And then when I joined the Skip Wizards, they're like, "Hey, this is the competition we're doing," and I was like, "Okay, bet." Like, cool.
Nice. So, what's the I went and did Junior Olympics. That was my first ever competition I did back when I was in very early teens. I'm curious, what is it like right now? What was it like going to that competition, and how is it the same or different from the other ones that you've been to?
Well, from when I started competing versus now isn't terribly different, I would say. I feel like the only changes would be just people figured out how to make competitions flow, like time flowing, so that way it's not a stagnant competition. The only difference really is there are a few event changes. So instead of doing 30-second speed and 30-second doubles, it's 1 minute speed, and then 3 minute is an event, and then double Dutch speed has a few different events as well. So
they do still have 1 minute speed.
Yeah.
I love that event. I was really bummed when that stopped being a thing, legitimately. Like, I really like that one.
Yeah, they still do it at USA, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, I like that event so much. I think it makes a lot of sense too. But anyway, I digress. What sport did you do? Any other sports before jump rope?
I grew up in a house that loved baseball.
Okay,
so that was actually the first sport I ever got like involved in.
Mm-hmm.
And then, if you've seen my page or like scroll through it a bit, you know that most of my page is tumbling. So I don't do that with a team. I just do that more as like a recreational thing. But I've been doing that for like 4 or 5 years now. And then other than that, I do volleyball as just kind of like a drop-in thing, not like an actual team, but it's just for fun.
That's cool. How did you start the tumbling?
So when I joined the All-Stars in Michigan, they like put out a little like, "Hey, we're going to be doing a tumbling class with a local like gymnastics academy, and if you want to come, here's the prices, here's the times." And my mom and I were like, this sounds like a perfect opportunity, because obviously with jump rope, if you can tumble and you can obviously perfect your form on it, but then jump roping in general becomes obviously a lot better, and it also becomes a lot smoother, cleaner, and easier.
Yeah, 100%. And so then from there, you started just taking more classes and just working on your skills?
Mm-hmm. I just started taking a bunch of open gym classes that were available and fell in love with it, and I've been doing it ever since.
That's really cool. Yeah, it's funny. That's actually kind of a similar way that I started, because back in the end of middle school, beginning of high school, like you said, I wanted to up my skill level a bit, and I needed more training on that kind of tumbling skills. So I started actually working with a tumbling coach for my local gymnastics spot, and then just over time started adding more and more and more. And tumbling skills are really, for me, they've always been really difficult to learn.
Yes.
It's like really hard to just kind of go for it and fling your body up into the air and feel comfortable with doing that.
Yeah, it took me quite some time to get comfortable with doing like round off back tucks and layouts.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I totally feel that. Have you done any performances, jump rope performances?
Oh yeah, I've done a lot. Obviously, if you do a workshop, like if you're staffing one, then you do a performance for all the kids that are there. Like the staff can do, because obviously they taught you the skills, but here's what they can do. And then with the All Stars, they do plenty of performances. Like I've done halftime games for like the U of M basketball games. I've done the Pistons halftime show. Um, I do a lot of local performances as well. So just like charity events, like the Walk for Life, or if like a building's opening and they want like a little, hey, here's some stuff, they'll bring us out. And yeah,
that's pretty cool. So what's the process to kind of prepare for those halftime shows? Because I would imagine I've only done one halftime show before, and I personally wasn't too involved. I just kind of showed up and worked with the team. But what has been your process preparing for those kinds of shows? Because those are very large shows.
Yes, they are. And they're very stressful, but they're so much fun. So typically we'll have a practice per usual, but we'll have an extra like hour or so. And those who are going will stay behind and we'll say, okay, here's what we can do for the show. And then we start making an order for the show. Like, okay, person one's singles going out, then person two's group, like double dutch is going out. Then we're going to have a wheel, like, and so on and so forth for the however long we have, typically 5 minutes. And then we just walk the show a few times. And obviously we work on the routines that we're going to be doing. And then we start running it and running it and running it. And then soon enough, before we know it, we're like on the floor.
Yeah, for real. Just kind of gassed out. Yeah. So let's kind of walk through all the different styles of jump rope, because I personally have been very focused on single rope for the past couple of years, and I've done a little double dutch and a little bit of wheel here and there, but I'd like to kind of walk through the different styles and kind of describe them. So there's obviously single rope, which has a lot of different components to it, and you've competed more recently than I have at the national scale. Do you want to kind of go through the different single rope events?
Sure. So obviously you have your speed events. So you'll typically use like a more of a thin wired rope than a beaded rope, because it obviously flies a lot faster. For like AMJRF, you'll do like 30-second speed, which is, for those who don't know, it's switching steps between each jump, or like what foot you're on. Then 30-second double unders, which is a little self-explanatory. 1 minute speed, 3 minute speed if that's an event at your competition. And speed relay, which is like 4 people, each doing 30 seconds, one at a time. And then the score is compiled. And then you start heading into freestyle, and you obviously have your single rope freestyle, which is my favorite event of all jump rope, the best. And that's like a minute to a minute 15 of just your favorite tricks, your hardest tricks. Well, depending.
Right. Yeah, depending on how you go about putting that routine together.
Yeah, typically like some of your harder tricks, but still your favorite tricks. And then if you compete it, then pairs, which is just a synchronized single rope routine, which is a lot of fun as well.
Yeah. Okay. And then for the relay one, that is 4 people lined up, and it's like a relay race in track and field, basically. So when the buzzer goes off, you switch, and then the next person goes. And then is that increments of 15 seconds, or is it 30 seconds?
Everyone does 30 seconds.
Everyone does 30. Okay. Yeah. Man, I would like to do that again. That would be really fun to work with the team to do that.
It's a fun event.
Yeah. Okay. So then we've got that. We've got the pairs freestyle, single freestyle. And then there's double dutch. Let's walk through the different double dutch events. So you've got 3 and 4 and 5, right?
Yeah. So typically for most competitions, it's just 3 and 4. There are certain competitions, however, like I know World Jump Rope does it. I haven't competed it myself, where you can do 5, and that's like triad. But instead of doing speed for triad, that's you only do freestyle. It'll either be a fusion routine, which is a lot of fun, or just a 5-person routine, which is basically a double dutch 4-person routine with an extra person thrown in, which gets exponentially harder trying to figure out what everyone can do at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is really interesting from the athlete's perspective if you have all those different events, because you have to memorize. You have a team of 3 people doing double dutch, you have a team of 4 people doing double dutch, and then potentially that triad, which is 5 people total. And memorizing all of those different routines is it's a lot to remember.
Yes, it is.
How's that been for you? Have you ever have you ever forgotten what happens next in a routine?
Yes, but thankfully never on the performance floor or competition floor. Knocking on wood, of course.
Yeah, that'd be pretty awkward. Oh my gosh. I think there's been a time actually where I have done that, or sometimes somebody will forget, like not forget it, but they'll move past a certain skill, because sometimes that can be really strategic to stay on time, because you still have about, what is it, up to a minute 15?
Yeah.
A minute 15 to do your full routine. And if you miss on something, those misses just take so much longer in double dutch.
Yeah.
Because you've got multiple people that need to get back on the same track, which is pretty intense. So let's talk about then Chinese wheel. Yeah, can you describe what that is?
I'm probably not nearly as knowledgeable as most people, just because I haven't actually competed wheel freestyle yet, but I know what they do. The wheel is typically more of a freestyle event. It's a lot harder to do like wheel speed. I would imagine that'd just be awful.
Yeah.
But so wheel freestyle is you have 2 ropes, 2 jumpers, and then you have one, or each person has one handle from both ropes, and you make freestyle out of it. And that gets hard because there's only so many things you can do before you have to really start thinking outside of the box.
Yeah, that the skill in wheel, there's a huge gap between the ones that you can figure out at first, and then a point there comes to a point where you just have to get really good really fast, and then the skills all get really difficult, because, and to kind of like paint more of a picture too, so each person is holding a rope in the same hand. So if you and I were doing a pairs, the rope that's in your left hand would be in my left hand, and the rope that's in your right hand would be my right. We'd be standing next to each other, and the motion is like swimming. So your hands don't move together unless you do on purpose, but the core jumping in wheel is that they move in a swimming motion. But it gets really cool when people start to sync that up and sync it together, because if you can do that wheel and then have that offset rhythm and then bring it together to be synced and then go back to offset, yeah, that's pretty impressive. Is the freestyle that's 45 seconds, right?
Yeah, so that's 45 to a minute 15, I believe.
Okay.
With like single rope and double dutch freestyle, for like deduction's sake, you can get like deductions, for those who don't know, on if you make a mistake, like if your rope stops unintentionally and you have to like recenter yourself and then get back into the ropes, that can be a small deduction. Same for double dutch. And then there's a thing called a time violation, and what that is if you go under or over the time constraints, then you get deducted as well. So if you go over a minute 15, you get deducted. And then for single rope and double dutch, if you go under a minute, you get deducted. But for wheel, thankfully, it's if it's under 45 seconds. So you don't have to worry about doing as much, but it's still there to throw in as many tricks as you can possibly to obviously boost your score to as high as it can be.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's funny, all the technical details that are in freestyle, and I like hearing about it and going through this again, because I haven't been in it really deeply lately, especially the freestyle part. I've been focusing a lot more on speed and working out and stuff, but it's fun to kind of go through that. Let's talk about some of the show stuff, because when you're doing shows, some of the stuff that we do with the ropes is not competed, but it's also really, really fun.
Oh yeah.
What are some of the things that you've done? I have a couple in my head, but I'm curious, what are some of the things that you've done?
So things that you wouldn't typically compete. And
that you would like do in a show to kind of impress people.
So something that is always like a great showstopper that you can actually compete if you're doing like double edge 4-person or triad or more. Obviously, you wouldn't have more for competition, but you can do it in shows. I've done it with like 8-9 people. Is a subway, and what that is it's everyone's in a push-up position, facing the same direction except for one person on one of the ends, and they're facing in towards everyone, and they do push-ups under everyone in the double edge ropes.
Yeah.
Fun.
Those are so much fun. And it's cool because, so like, you've got, yeah, like you said, 1 to as many as you can fit people that are kind of like facing not the turners, but they're facing the audience, and the turners are facing them. And then they go into a push up, but then there's one person, usually one person, maybe more depending on the crazy stuff that gets done, that is facing the turners and goes under them perpendicularly while they're jumping, which is wild. Do you guys ever do like egg beater or rainbow or anything like that?
Oh yeah, we still do those.
Yeah, egg beater is really sick. When you guys do egg beater, is it typically with one person in the middle?
So it's either one person in the middle or one person in the middle and then one person with each of the turners, because obviously you have that rope space to work with. Obviously it gets a little hard because you need to be close enough to the turner that you don't get whacked by the ropes in the middle. You need to be far enough away from the turner that they don't cut off your feet. Well, in a figurative sense, where the rope doesn't catch your feet is what I meant to say, and mess up the rest of it. Wrong move and it goes sour real quick.
Yeah. And so egg beater is when, similar to double dutch, but not really. So you take 2 ropes, and they're usually, what length do you guys use? Like 14 or 12 foot?
I've used up to 20.
Oh, wow. That's really big. Okay. So
you can put a lot more people in it, so that makes sense.
So egg beater is like when you have 2 ropes, then instead of being turning next to each other like a double dutch, they're perpendicular and overlapping. And there's 4 different people turning each end of the ropes, and it moves together and it looks like an egg beater. I've always found what's really cool is when you do a destroyer in the middle of that, where the ropes overlap.
So cool.
Yeah. Have you ever, I mean, I'm sure the answer is probably somewhere close to yes, but have you ever gotten a partner injury, like trying a new skill or anything? Because I'm bringing up the destroyer, and like that immediately brought to mind something that happened with one of my teammates, and I'm curious if like you've ever had some kind of like injury or whatever with some partner skill.
Typically, I'm the one being flipped, which is kind of funny because I'm a 5'11" like guy, so typically I'd be the one flipping the partner, but I'm also only 135 pounds, so I'm really light easily.
Nice.
So the fun thing about that is, like I said, I'm typically the one being destroyed for destroyer, which is one person standing behind me. I have my arms like between my legs, and the partner behind me grabs my arms and throws me into a front flip, and it goes great. Except for one time where we were doing it in double dutch, and we were just coming out of a power sequence, and I go to put my hands like through my legs, and everything goes great. But what I didn't realize is I wasn't in a line with my partner. Like I was like staggered and diagonal.
Oh no.
And he lifted me, and it was going great. But what we quickly found out was because of my positioning, my head went straight to his hip.
Ouch.
And we both panicked, and he dropped me flat on my back on hardwood floor.
Oh man.
Thankfully, I wasn't hurt. Like, it was obviously very shocking because no one expected it to happen, but like it was kind of a bigger practice, and everyone just turned and looked, and I was like, oh.
Yeah, oh man, yeah, that destroyers, I don't really like to do them like ever because of like that exact reason. They're so easy to mess up. Like I did that one time with one of my older teammates way back in the day, and I was the one that was flipping him. And so we just, as it happens with destroyers, we just mistimed it, and we weren't paying attention. Ooh. And he wasn't ready to flip, and we just miscued it, you know? So like I pulled to flip him, and he didn't commit to it, and then just smashed his face into the ground, which was a big bummer. Yeah. Which was not good. He was a trooper though, and he just kind of got up and walked it off, which was impressive. But yeah, that was pretty rough. So let's go back to those other skills that happen in performances. Rainbow. Have you done rainbow?
Oh yeah, we love rainbow.
How many people do you usually do with that?
Well, typically you want an odd number just because you want to have one person in the exact middle jumping a single rope.
Mm-hmm.
But between 7, 9.
Okay, nice.
Because obviously the bigger it gets, the more impressive it looks.
Yeah, so you guys have 7, so that's pretty solid. So there's one pair of people with what I would imagine is a 20-foot rope.
Yeah.
And then you guys are turning that probably forward one direction. And then you have another set of 2 people with one rope that come into that, and as they're jumping that, they're also turning a rope the same direction.
Yeah.
And then what size is that rope?
I think between 15 and 17 feet. Obviously just so a little bit of room, but still large enough to get the next set of people.
Okay, and so you have a third group of 2 people that come in, and then there's that last person, like you said, to make it odd, that comes into the middle. Yeah, rainbow is so cool. Like,
it really is
cool. Yeah, and it's really just visually striking.
And the cool thing is it's really not the hardest thing to learn, but it looks hard.
Yeah, exactly. It looks super impressive. But I feel like that's like a lot of skills in jump rope, you know?
Oh, absolutely.
Like for me, anytime I demonstrate a mick, it's a showstopper. Like it's just that's the party trick, you know? It's pretty funny. What's been your favorite place you've jumped? This could be a place or an event if an actual place doesn't come to mind.
That's kind of tough. Because I've done a whole lot of performances. If we're talking strictly performances, not like workshop performances, then probably the Pistons halftime show that we did. That was a lot of fun. The crowd loved it. And obviously it was like a really big floor. I don't know if anyone recorded it because that video would have been great.
Yeah.
I just know, like the crowd, it was great for them because everyone was thinking like, oh, here come the cheerleaders. Psych, here comes some jump roper.
Yeah. Swerve. That's pretty funny. What about workshops?
Workshops? No, that's really hard because there's so many workshops that I love performing, like in staffing. I gotta say, my favorite one is either gotta be the one from Jumpstart, which is the one annually held in Michigan, or Jump with the Stars, which is the one annually held in Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've seen any videos, but that was a video where like Porter was sending his double back.
That's insane.
That entire staff show was absolutely crazy. Olivia and Allie, I don't remember Olivia's last name, but I think it's Allie Astles. The 2 put on the show. Well, like they helped choreograph and make sure the show is running smoothly. They did a fantastic job. If you watch the video, the entire staff was just like screaming because we were all just like floored. And obviously we're all just hyping each other up because that's what you do when you're in a staff show. You want to make sure that the staff are having a fun time, so that the audience are having a fun time. So it's just collective good energy that you can just feed off of, and it helps you perform better, and it's great. So that workshop was absolutely killer because it was so much fun. And the staff show was incredible. If you find videos, just be prepared to be blown away because it's the coolest thing.
Yeah, I'll try to link up a couple of staff shows in the show notes for this episode because, if you haven't seen it, it's just taking all of the best creativity, or it's not always necessarily the best, but it's just taking a lot of creative minds, a lot of elite jumpers, and putting them together in a room to let them explore anything jump rope related, and what comes out of it is just things it's what evolves the sport.
Yeah.
You know, can you walk me through kind of a day of a workshop for those who haven't gone to a conventional competitive jump rope workshop? Can you walk me through what that day is like?
Sure. Typically obviously you don't need to know all like detail for detail, but
you walk through the door and then you take your bag off.
You walk through the door, take your bag off, and put on your shoes. No. Typically most workshops, like you'll enter around 8-ish just to sign in and everything. 9-ish the workshop starts, and you'll
That's
do
in
a
the
group.
morning.
Yeah. No, at night. We're doing overnight.
Well, I don't know. Like that could happen.
I mean, it could. I don't feel like anyone would appreciate it though.
Yeah, for real. Anyway.
Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, and then group warm up, and then we typically start leveling off the kids because there will be kids who have been jumping for 13 and plus years, all the way down to kids who is like this could be their first day jumping. So obviously the skill level is vastly different, and so we will level them off by giving like a few trick demos. So it'll be like, okay, if you can be in level 4 if you can do a TJ quad, if you can do like a kamikaze, which is like a push up, whip around to another push up without putting up your feet first, and just various hard tricks like that. And then we slowly go down the ladder. So like level 3 will be like if you can do 3 consecutive triples. Level 2 will be like consecutive doubles, and then level 1 is just the kids who can't do any of that stuff yet. Then we start teaching single rope. We'll teach wheel. We'll teach double dutch. Some workshops teach fusion as well.
So they go through the full gamut of different styles of jump rope and different ways you can interact with it.
And sometimes we'll throw in a little like left hook at everyone, like metaphorically, and be like, okay, this is time where we want you to come up with something really cool, like something new, and then you'll just show it later. And then obviously we'll stop for lunch halfway through the workshop so the kids aren't dying.
Yeah.
We let the kids put on a performance for their parents who are there. So we'll have like the
that's really fun. That's new.
Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't been at a workshop where that's happened. That's really cool.
It's really nice, like in my opinion, because it allows the kids to really show. Because I know I was that kid who, like, after every workshop would go straight to my mom to show her everything I learned.
Yeah.
Having the kids perform is a great way because obviously the parents know who they're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
So you can record their kid, and the kid can show off as many tricks as they want, and it's great. And we let each level do it. Typically, we start with like the lowest or the youngest level and work our way up. So that way the skills get progressively harder. And then after 4 or 5, depending on what skill level like we have, typically it's just 4. Then the staff leaves for just a second just to like say, okay, here's the order of the show. Then we walk back in, perform the show. And that's typically when the workshop is over and pictures are taken with everyone.
Yeah, and it's an entire full day of jumping.
Yeah, so typically it's like the workshop starts at 9 and then ends between 3 and 4.
And then you eat a really big meal and spend Sunday on the couch because you can't move because of how sore you are.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So when you go to the workshops now, you're usually coaching, correct?
Yeah, so I'm typically one of the people who teach, and most of the time it's like invite only. So it's a really big honor, and I'm really grateful for everyone who reaches out to me because I love teaching. Like seeing the kids' faces light up as they get a trick that I taught them is the best thing ever.
Yeah, no, I understand that feeling because you get really excited about like, wow, that feeling that I've felt, that euphoric, awesome feeling I've just given to another human.
Yeah.
So when you're there, what type of skills are you teaching? What type of skills do you teach when you go to the workshops?
So like I said, we teach single rope, double dutch, wheel, occasionally triad, maybe fusion. And so I tend to teach the higher levels just because I have an easier time teaching them than teaching the younger kids.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are the complete opposite. Like they can't teach higher levels, even though they jump in those levels, but have a much easier time teaching the younger kids.
Why do you think that is?
I'm really not sure. For me personally, I have a easier time teaching the higher levels just because I give them tricks that they understand how to do. And even if I'm teaching them a new one, they can teach base tricks that they've already learned in previous levels.
Mm-hmm.
So like they both like they learned a double under, and then they learned a double footed frog. Then they can just throw it together. And the thing is like I can demonstrate those tricks, and it's not like it's too foreign to them because they've either seen someone do it or they've attempted it themselves. Then all I need to do really, like this sounds really lazy, but like all I need to do really is just give them feedback.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, for your double footed, try springing up just a hair sooner or whip it a little bit faster.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure to lock your arms when you're landing in that frog or something along those lines. Same thing goes for multiples and rope manipulation.
Do you have a specific skill that's your favorite to teach?
So I love teaching single rope. That's just my favorite
Mhm.
because that's where I guess you could say where I shine the most in the jump rope world. So I will obviously I'll teach multiples, I'll teach footwork or rope manipulation where it's like the ropes wrapping around your legs or your arms or your body somehow. And I teach power as well, which is your handstands, push-ups. But for multiples, I love teaching one of my favorite triples ever, and that's what I've been calling a freeze frame as of lately
Okay.
because I haven't really seen a whole lot of people do it. I'd like to say that I came up with it. However, because I've only been in this sport for 7 years, if someone else has done it, I'm so sorry for taking credit.
And that's honestly, I found that to be a really common pattern because of the nature of jump rope is very creative, that people come
Yeah.
across the same types of skills. Like, for example, I want to hear what your skill is, but just as a quick digression, I understand what you're saying because back when I was, I think, 12,
Mhm.
way back in the day, I was still in middle school. Jeremy Lindstrom came to my team and worked with us, which was amazing. He's a really phenomenal jumper, and at the time, he was on the All-Star team, which at that All-Star team, I think that year or two was like the pinnacle of
Yeah.
skill level. And so he was there teaching us some skills, and I asked him, I was like, hey, what if you do a mick coming up from a push-up? He's like, well, what do you mean? So like I went into a push-up and I let go of my handle and I tried to mick up, and at the time I couldn't even get close to it. I was just kind of like whipping it around and stuff. But he went and tried it, and he effectively, what I've come to realize it actually is how you can do a mick triple under where you swing,
Yeah.
release, catch, but there's a double under where you just release, catch.
Yeah.
Effectively, it's the double under mick up from a push-up.
hmm
And so we were doing, and then he ended up doing it, and it looked super cool. And we dubbed it the NJ for its name because he told me he hadn't seen anyone do it. Whether
I
or
love
not
that.
whether or not someone did, I'm not really sure. But fast forward a couple of years later, and I saw people like Adam Jernberg, like Stuart Isaacs, do
Yeah.
that same skill, or like even from like a handstand. And I was like, hey, like that's my skill, And like Jeremy told me that he had told a lot of people about it or whatever. And I was like, oh, that's pretty sick. But no one refers to it as the NJ. And I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense because the same way I came to that conclusion about the skill, I'm sure these guys did as well.
Yeah.
But what is your skill, and what can you describe it?
Yeah. So the freeze frame is what I've been calling it because that's literally what it looks like. If take like your typical like High School Musical or any like like kind of corny like high school film
Mm-hmm.
where they'll do like the freeze frame ending where they jump up in the air and they just stop. Like that's what it,
Yes.
so it's a side swing over the head open triple. But instead of just going through it like a normal motion, what you do is you literally stop your rope. Not catch it to go the other way. You literally just stop moving halfway up in that over the head side swing,
Mm-hmm.
or you whip it open again. And so the reason I call it like a freeze frame is because you go for it and you literally stop like you're in the movies, and then you keep going with your multiple, and it looks really, really cool.
Oh, that's pretty sick, man. I'm gonna have to find that on your Instagram page, and I can link it up here because,
Yeah.
yeah, that sounds super cool.
Mhm.
Do you have a favorite moment from a workshop?
Oh, that's
I know that's probably tough because they're very exciting, no matter which one you go to. But I'm
yeah.
wondering if any moment or maybe two moments really stick out in your memory.
So one that really sticks out is like I've previously mentioned, the whole staff show from this previous Jump with the Stars workshop literally just had my jaw on the floor for the entire performance, and it was a half-hour performance.
Yeah. And the reason why that's so impressive too, because I think for a lot of folks who might be, unfamiliar with a show, there usually are parts of the show that the energy just comes down a little bit. Not in a bad
Yeah,
way, but you're talking about usually 45 minutes of jump roping. At some point, it's
gets a
just
little old.
not even it gets old. It's just that it like, yeah, well, I guess no, you're right. It gets a little old in terms of like, okay, like I get it, like that's cool. Like I still appreciate it, I still like it, but it doesn't like get me fired up. But what you're
Mhm.
saying is that like that one specifically had you fired up the whole time.
Yes,
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's
because it was jaw dropper after jaw dropper. Like Porter threw his double back tuck. Steph came out for his singles and he did this tumbling pass where it was all front tumbling. I don't know how he managed to keep his stamina for it, but it was Webster, so step in front flip to another Webster, straight to a front handspring, punch front AS out. And it was like, what the heck?
that's
Like, who are these
that's
people?
that's dumb. I can't even believe that that was like a real thing.
Right?
That's insane. Like it, yeah, and the fact that he was able to do not even one but two Websters, a Webster into a front handspring is so hard.
It's insane.
Yeah, that's very very impressive. Oh my goodness.
Mm.
Man. Okay, so yeah, that's
And then just the entire show was just stuff like that. Like people coming out, doing something new. And I'm sure you saw it on either Brian Shu or Nick Woodard's Instagram where Brian like wheelbarrow flipped Nick
mhm.
over Stewart, and then Nick landed in between Stewart and Kaylee, and then he backflipped over Kaylee.
Yep. So that's really crazy because the wheelbarrow flip, I've used that term in the past, but it's a different version. So you're talking about, this is wild. This has always impressed me about Nick, among the many other things that impressed me about Nick because he's a phenomenal jumper.
Oh, absolutely.
So you have to imagine basically he's sitting with his butt on the ground and his hands are on the ground, right? And so then Brian, I mean, this isn't actually how he gets into it, but just to paint a picture. So he's sitting, feet forward together. Brian picks up his feet and his hands are next to his hips. So he's holding himself up with his hands. Now, in reality, he's in that position in double Dutch jumping, and then Brian takes his feet and throws them straight up in the air, throwing him into a backflip. And I've done the other version of this, which is the front flip, where your partner is in a push-up position and you grab their feet and you throw them into a front flip. So it's the reverse of that. But yeah, I remember watching that skill, and the amount of precision you need for that is incredible.
Insane.
Because he lands in between Kaylee and you said Stewart, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like if he would have landed on one of them, that would have sucked.
Mm-hmm.
Which I'm sure that kind of thing has happened many times trying these kinds of stunts.
Because like everyone was like, "Whoa, this is really cool and a little risky," and they got on the floor and nailed it first try, and everyone was just like, "We don't understand. Are these people human? Like, is this a hologram or what's happening over here?"
Well, and that's a good point too that I didn't think to bring up, but I'm glad you said that. First try in the workshop performances.
Yeah.
A lot of times people will try skills a couple times in a row.
Mm-hmm.
How many is it usually like 3 times is your max and then you move on?
I would say, as of lately, I don't know if you ever did those kind of performances. But I feel like a good rule of thumb is if you make 2 mistakes, bowing out. Just period. Like if you
Okay.
So even if it's like you mess up on your first multiple and then mess up on your first power trick, that's 20 seconds later, you should still just bow out because obviously you don't want to keep messing up because it doesn't look as clean as it could.
Mm-hmm.
Even though your routine might be the best one out on the floor, it's still just a good rule of thumb.
Okay. Yeah, I did the Hot Dog USA workshops 5-6 years ago or something. And I staffed that and did the performance, which was phenomenal. But yeah, that's the main workshop that I've done. Yeah.
Well, then again, Hot Dog is just, their team is crazy.
It's insane. And I think that was, if I remember correctly, I think that's when they were the most stacked with their competitors. I think that I think at that workshop there was Lee Reisig and LJ and Zev and Nick, Brian, like the full gamut of like the top jumpers, which was insane to be hanging out with them in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they're all super nice dudes. So let's kind of transition a little bit here because you've been jumping for a good amount of years. You said 7 years, right?
Yeah, this is my 7th year. We'll finish the 7th year this June.
Cool. So what are you hoping to accomplish with jump rope in the future, if there's anything specific on your mind?
Well, I've been competing like on a national scale. I would love to go to Worlds
Hmm.
because I've just heard that's amazing and it's such a fun competition. But on top of that, I would also like to win a few national and grand national titles as well as some world titles. Like if that doesn't happen in my jump rope career, that's perfectly fine. But it's just I feel like a good goal to set. I've been wanting to apply for flight crew jump rope,
Hmm.
like just their performance team,
Hmm.
because I'm sure if you've looked at my Instagram, you know that when I jump with a smile and I jump with a lot of passion.
Hmm.
And a lot of people think it's faked, but it's genuine. Like I'm having a blast because
Yeah, it's really
it's really
fun to
my favorite
perform.
thing to do.
Hmm.
Those guys perform for a living, and if that doesn't sound like a dream job to me, I don't know what.
Yeah, for real. No, that is such a blast. That's really cool, man. Have you ever competed at Grand Nationals before?
Yes, so I've competed twice
Okay.
as of today. The first time I did it, I was 13 or 14. I double dutch four person. We made it completely clean through the routine.
Oh, sweet.
Huge shock to us because we never got it clean once in the practice runs. And the funny thing was, is literally a few heats before we were going on the floor, a few of us were at each other's throats. Um,
Yeah, that happens. That's a real part of competition.
yes, it is. It's the fun part though. So then we walked on the floor, gave it our best, and we were stunned to even gotten it clean, and we were happy. I was personally happy if we just placed because
Right.
I placed at nationals before, and then started going like later on the day. They got to the award ceremony, and they called 10th through first, obviously, so to build the suspense for who won. And they got through fifth place, and we're sitting there. We're like, this doesn't sound right. Did we place? Got through fourth, and we thought for sure we didn't place, and they called third, and that was our four person. And those who are on my team know that I was literally in tears. I was sobbing because one, I'd never placed at nationals, and then so that means I hadn't podiumed, and then I went straight from not placing at all to literally podiuming. So I was crying, and then after that, they call results for grands. And those who don't know how grands works is for freestyle, it's if you either place first in your age division or you place top 12 over literally everyone, which is so hard to do. Then you make it onto grand nationals where you get to compete again for even cooler like prizes or like a better like trophy or a plaque or something.
And you're
And they,
competing against the top 10
oh
scores in
yeah,
that event,
hmm
regardless of age.
yeah. So there have been times where I've competed against like 20 and over kids, and there have been times where I've competed as a 13 under kid, but we're all competing for the same top spot. And so then they called our name for, hey, you qualified for grands. I was already crying, but then it was just worse.
Yeah. No, I understand that feeling because what you described about them calling off the names, that
Mhm.
happened to me too because I made it for single rope speed in 1 minute.
Ooh, okay.
And so I remember sitting with my team and they're, like you said, they're calling the names off and they get to like fourth and they didn't say my name. And I was like, damn, like these must have been some really good scores. Like I guess
Yeah.
but the funny part was when I was on the floor, I PR'd on the floor and got 168 in 1 minute.
Dang,
And
that's so good.
I was like pumped because I was counting myself and I was going
Mhm.
and I hit 160 in my head and I was like, wow, okay, I guess I must be off because I was hitting like high 150s leading up to it.
Yeah,
And I had a clean
the
run.
adrenaline.
Yeah, it really is. And I had a totally clean run. And so then they said, like, I think it was, yeah, it was third place. They called my name and I medaled and podiumed and then
That's
got
awesome.
to go. And I went up to, when you get ready for Grand Nationals, it's really different because in normal Nationals, you've got like 20 people going at once with speed stuff.
Mhm.
And at Grands, at least that year, there was only 2 people going in a heat.
Yeah,
And is that still the same?
I believe it's up to four now
Okay.
because with freestyle stations, one freestyle station, for those who don't know, is four speed stations combined,
Hmm.
is how they started to lay that out. So it just makes sense to have four people go at the same time to keep the flow of the competition going.
Yeah. And so, but at that competition, the grands that I did, there was just two. And so you would walk up and there's this massive black curtain and you would be behind the curtain and walk out onto a stage with 400 or 500 people watching you.
Oh yeah.
Which is already pretty intimidating. But so
absolutely.
I was walking up with Blake Dentley. I think that's his last name. Yeah. And he was so funny. Such a nice guy. And we were waiting backstage and he's like, yeah, you know, like every time I walk up to this, I always have to pee right before I go on stage. And it's so true.
That's so true.
So true. Like you're fine up until you're right behind the curtain waiting to go on stage.
Like, I'm gonna die.
Yeah, for real. And so I got on stage and this is so wild. I hit the exact same score at Grand Nationals.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible.
No miss. This exact same thing, completely repeated, which was super exciting. It was, that was a really, really cool experience. But yeah, Grands is just something else, man. That kind of a thing makes me want to go practice again, do it. But at the same time, once you pass 17, 18 years old, you just have to be the best, you know?
Yeah.
You can't make it based on your division anymore. You just have to be the top of the top. Which is not doable. It's just a lot tougher.
A lot
to train
harder.
For. Yeah, 100%. I'm wondering, has jump rope taught you anything? Is there anything that you've picked up over the years from jump rope specifically that you've taken to apply to life or anything really?
Yeah, and this is going to be the most generic answer ever, and I apologize.
But it's the truth.
Yes. But I've learned a lot of teamwork skills. Growing up in a house of 5 kids, being the second oldest of the 5, you obviously learn how to work together a bit. But when you get put on a team with like 30 people, that's a whole different league. And so then you really learn how to be a team player, like helping stay after, like leading stretches, leading warm-ups, really listening to what other people have to say. Also, on top of teamwork, jump rope has given me a lot of confidence that I didn't have. Because going into the sport, I was the most shy kid you will probably have ever met. But now here we are, 6.5 years later. And if you come up to me at like a workshop, I'll give you a hug. I'll say hi. I'll give you some positive feedback on your routine or your speed event or whatever. And then when I perform, it's just even more like confident, which is really funny because like I don't see myself as a confident person or like necessarily a great jumper, but when I'm on the floor, I'm just a completely different person because I'm just in the moment having an absolute blast. And it's fantastic. It's probably the best feeling ever.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. To kind of round things out here, it's been a really good time chatting about all this stuff, and I think I definitely want to be respectful of your time. So I think we're gonna get to the main big question that I ask everyone, since we're on a good little tangent here. What is jump rope to you?
Ooh,
yeah.
Question. Like I've heard it in your previous podcast, and I felt like I was prepared, but as soon as you asked that, my mind went blank.
Right? So, it's all right. No, we can buy a little time too. I think for a lot of people, especially competitors, there's just so much to that answer that it's just really comprehensive.
Yeah, I think the best way that I can put it is a family, in the sense that when I go to a competition, it does not matter what team you're on, how long you've been jumping, how old you are, nothing matters. Everyone's there to support each other. And that's just so amazing because obviously if you're really nervous for an event, you have people come up to you who you may have never met and they're just like saying, you got this, deep breath, have a great time. And it's so nice because obviously it's 300 people who aren't necessarily competing against each other, but competing with each other. Yeah. So like I said, the support is just absolutely amazing. It cheers me up 100% of the time. And the friends I've made, seriously, the friends I've made are the best. And the sport is so diverse in every aspect that you never really get bored with it. seriously, it's like a family. Everyone's there to support each other. Everyone loves each other. Everyone wants the best for each other. And yeah, I really don't know how to explain it other than that.
No, that's so true. And yeah, it's funny because as you're saying that, I'm thinking back to like all the different times that I've experienced that as well. And it's so true, man. Like it is
Mm,
the coolest part of it too is that that's very it's very unique of the competitive world. But
yeah.
as I don't feel that I've ever left competition, but as I've grown and added in
Mhm.
a lot of jumping with like enthusiasts, you know, people who use it for
Yeah.
specific sports, I've found that that family vibe still radiates out towards everyone. You know, if you pick up a jump rope, you're part of the family, and it's been very, very awesome.
Like there are people when I go to workshops, I seriously feel like a family. I can go up and there will be like Brian Shu is leading the workshop or something, but he still makes me feel like I'm important enough to be on the family. Or like this previous workshop, I went to the Jump Pro workshop in Woodbridge, Virginia, which was a whole lot of fun. And even though I felt like the weak link of the staff team, they still made me feel really important, and it was absolutely fantastic. And that's really what helps me stay motivated in this sport, is to be part of this big family.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Adam, dude, thanks so much for taking the time to be on the show today. This has been really fun for me to go down like a little bit of a memory lane, thinking about all the past, like specifically competition stuff. And I really enjoyed this.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciated this. I listened to a few of them. I was like, I want to do this so bad.
Yeah, no, and it's been really, I like having everyone on. You know, if I could,
Hmm.
I would just spend every single day on the phone doing these.
Oh, I feel that.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, I'll let you get back to your day. Thank you so much for being on, and I'll definitely be
Thank
catching up
you.
soon.
Yeah, absolutely.